Hello, today is Friday, October 24th, and welcome to episode 518 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined today by Deputy Executive Director Martha Miller, Advisory Board Member Les Munson, and Senior Fellow Matt Hayden. So I was going to try to promise us a fun Friday. I'm not sure I quite can because we're talking about sanctions. Not the most jovial of topics, but earlier this week, the U.S. rolled out an aggressive set of sanctions against Russia's war economy, directly targeting oil giants that together account for roughly half of Russia's crude output. Critically, this sanction rollout also includes secondary sanctions that will create risk for foreign banks, shippers, and refiners that continue to do major business with them, which put buyers like India and China on notice. For their part, Moscow has been pretty dismissive. They say that this isn't going to have impact. It's not going to change their calculus when it comes to continuing the conflict in Ukraine. On our partner side, for example, for India, there have been some signaling that they're going to reevaluate their Russian oil import strategy, but they have not publicly committed to not purchasing Russian oil and gas. The EU doesn't want to be left behind, though. So there have been increasing stories about them getting serious about unlocking hundreds of billions of euros of sovereign Russian assets that have been frozen in the Europe. One plan includes a reparations loan of roughly 140 billion euros for Ukraine in the upcoming year. That would be secured against Russian assets. So we got a lot of money talk here. We got dollars and we got euros. So Matt, you always have the most diplomatic response amongst this cohort. So I'm going to turn first to you. Is this a story? Is there a way to make this fun? Is this the beginning of the light at the end of
We hope so. So the way we approach all levers of government do include sanctions and full efforts with diplomatic partners. So when we start to see folks across the NATO coalition and others start to take up the same level of sanctions practice, it sort of demonstrates a coalition of the willing against income for conflict across the Russian elements that Putin is controlling. It's a very strong posture that we've been waiting to see. This is something that does impact the global markets. So there was this overall thought that maybe this could be done through a negotiation and not be disruptive to the overall markets of some of our other large partners like China and for India. And you do have to call China and India a partner when it comes to trade. So it is one of those things where we try to sit back and say, what is the impact going to be? Hopefully this is something that has a heavier hand than most, but time will tell because this is a country that hasn't truly been smacked down by sanctions to the point where it's made it truly decision-making. But it is another level that we're hoping will stack on top and make a difference.
Martha, to Matt's point, Russia doesn't seem, at least publicly, too phased by the announcement of sanctions. They're not happy, but they don't say, there's no indication that they're changing their ways. What do you make of the White House's announcement of sanctions earlier this week?
Look, it's great that they're doing this. I think the problem with a lot of the negotiations with Putin has been assuming that he is a rational actor. He has been nothing but irrational since the very beginning of all of this. And so I think it will take much, much more. I think it will take the pending sanctions legislation in Congress. It will also take the EU actually taking action on the frozen assets, along with assets with other partners around the world. But also importantly, I think the Tomahawks actually did make Putin, pay attention. But boy, wouldn't it be interesting if all of these pieces were pulled together? Actual true military strain and all of these economic levers together.
So last week we talked about the Tomahawks. I think it was actually our last Friday episode. And, you thought perhaps those had been traded away for ceasing violations of European airspace by Russia, right? There might have been some deal, put that in air quotes. Do you think that Tomahawks may come back on the table? Do you think there's going to be some retaliatory action by Russia, or are they just going to continue like normal business?
I don't think we're going to see Russian retaliatory action over the sanctions that the White House announced, to be honest. I'm not sure these are sanctions that will make a difference. The things that will make it, what would make a difference is punishing India and China for purchasing Russian oil and figuring out some way to do that with Iran, the Iran relationship as well, which is slightly more complicated. But if you could use economic sanctions to turn off Chinese purchases and Indian purchases of Russian oil and gas, then you're really talking. And that would be a ton of pressure on Putin. We're not quite there yet. This bill in the Senate that Senator Thune, the majority leader, has said they might be moving, would push in that direction. And that's what a lot of Republican senators are talking about. But to be totally frank, if you look at the stock market and the economy, if I were President Trump, and I'm not, but if I were, I would be
quite the podcast if you were.
If I were, would be something. I have better hair, but if I were the president, I'd be focused on the impact this could have on the U.S. economy. To be totally honest, and there are some trade-offs here for the U.S. as well. There would be a significant reaction if we were to go down the road of the kind of sanctions that would make a difference on the Russian economy. And I think we should all be just kind of hard-eyed about that. That realistically balancing that with the desire to get a peace deal, a fair peace deal in Ukraine, it's a really tough call. And I think we're not addressing it right now. Instead, the president is talking about stopping negotiations with Canada over this Reagan ad thing. And Democrats.
Not ad yet, but it must have really riled folks up.
It's pretty exciting stuff. The market went up after that, interestingly. Democrats seem focused on shutting down the government and trying to stop this new ballroom at the White House from being constructed. They will probably fail on both counts. But instead of doing the serious questions, we're kind of getting distracted by silliness.
Well, because we talk about silliness, we made some bets on when the shutdown would be done. I can't remember. We'll have to go back and check. Some had pretty quickly, but there was a few that were holding out till Thanksgiving. So there's still some people that are in the race to be correct on the shutdown. And you brought up ballroom, so let's do another prediction. I've heard from folks on the podcast that should be done by next fall. We will have a new ballroom that's replaced the East Wing. Do we think that we're going to be twirling by next October, this date, 1 year from today, that we'll be able to be twirling in this new ballroom? Les, I'm starting with you.
I'm going to go with yes. I think simply because President Trump is pretty good at incentivizing contractors to do the work because he doesn't pay them until the work is done, and sometimes not even then. But I am totally pro ballroom. I don't know why you wouldn't want a ballroom at the White House. Have you ever been to an event there? And I've been to a couple. You have to go through these tents outside, and I like tents, but it's the White House. You have a real facility to do entertaining. There are big things that happen there. Why is anyone against it?
I'm tall. Those tents have a very low clearance, and I'm running into the top of them. Okay, Martha, are we twirling 1 year from today in a new ball?
So yes, I agree with Lester. We will see it by then, and I think it's very clear that Trump will get results from his contractors. Not only that, he'll just put pressure on his staff to keep them going, and will be very upset if it's not done in time.
Matt, are you going to make it a sweep? You think
I'll make it very specific. There will be a Halloween trick-or-treating party in the new ballroom next year.
Wow, he just one-upped all of you guys.
Awesome.
All of you.
I'm going as a tomahawk.
Well, you heard it, guys. We're going to continue making predictions on fault lines. That's a wrap. Thanks so much to Kelly Crowley, Taylor Lane, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Monday, October 27th. Almost a countdown to Halloween, guys, for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check out our channel. And if you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.